What's good? What's good? So, I'm just outside connecting, doing what I do, tapping in once again, make sure I got that lighting and everything right for y'all. Yeah, man. So, basically, you know what I mean? I'm just out here, like I said, connecting, tapping in. I'm just thinking, uh, I don't even really know where to start, you know what I mean? Just because there's a lot of shit going on out here, you know? And I think people sometimes can underestimate the things that I say or when I speak, right? I get readings and stuff like that often. I'm guided out here. I'm not just like a lost soul wandering in the woods, you know what I mean? I do recommend that for anybody, everybody, you know what I mean? Get you a reader, get somebody that you can trust, that you know is going to guide you in the right direction, you know what I'm saying? Yeah, man. Really just wanted to tap in and talk about how important it is to really be yourself. And excuse that shit. Excuse. Like, this is where the line's at. But yeah, crazy how I can come out here and they try to throw all this noise and shit. But yeah, anyways, bro. Just wanted to talk about how important it is to really be yourself. You know what I mean? Like, a lot of people try to portray and be somebody that they're not. You know what I'm saying? And that's what I'm just really, noticing more about myself is how authentic and unapologetically I am being myself at all times. You know what I mean? I don't care about anything that anybody has to say or anything like that, And like I said, a lot of people, it's not, I don't even want to say a lot of people, just, sometimes people can get themselves fucked up and put yourself in a situation you don't necessarily want to be in, right? A lot of crazy things have kind of been happening this past week or so. But like I said, this is the eclipse season. We're in eclipse season right now. Today's actually the 19th, so 19th, 20, 21, you know what I mean? The eclipse shit is about to get lit out here, so when I say protect your energy, I truly do mean that. You gotta stay protected out here. You gotta stay blissed, you know what I mean? Because a lot of motherfuckers gonna try to knock you off your grind. They're gonna try and do what they try to do, but again, like, I'm the least bit worried about any of that shit, just understanding my power as an alchemist, you know what I mean? Anybody trying to throw shade or anybody trying to stop me from doing what I do, it's impossible. You literally cannot stop what the Most High, what God has planned already. This shit was written, Mach 2, you know what I'm saying? So, again, you just got to be careful, bro, about what you ask for, what you're wishing for, you know what I mean? Because sometimes you may ask for things and do things that you may not necessarily want to attract in your life, you know what I mean? Because, like I said, the law of attraction, bro, is very, very powerful. You know what I mean? I've had to cut a lot of people out of my life simply because I just understand they don't match my vibration. They don't match, who I am as a person. And yeah, it's kind of lonely, but I'm okay with that. I'm mastering what that means, you know what I mean, to be alone, to really be alone. Well, I'm never alone. You understand what I'm saying? Even though I'm alone, I'm alone out here, but I'm never alone. You understand? So when you can learn how to master being alone, bro, you become literally so powerful and unstoppable because there's nothing anybody can tell me about myself that I don't know about myself. You know what I'm saying? Like, people can point and say things about me or whatever the case, and I don't have to identify with that shit. You know what I mean? Only thing is if I choose to identify with what people say, and that kind of depends. You understand what I'm saying? But yeah, bro. Like I said, man, I said this in a few couple of vlogs back. You know what I mean? I'm from when I say I grew up in the jungle, I mean, look where I'm at, bro. Like I said, bro, like, I really grew up, you know what I mean, in the jungle type shit. And I'm not talking about the jungle like Los Angeles. There's a place called that they call the jungle and shit like that, you know what I mean? But I really grew up in an environment. I just want to be, let me be accurate, because my parents, my mother and my father, they did everything they can to make sure that we grew up in an environment full of love, full of, loving vibrations and shit like that. You know what I'm saying? Like, I live a normal, quote unquote, like a normal life. You understand what I'm saying? Like, I had friends, you know what I mean? I skated, I played sports, went to school, just shit like that. You understand what I'm saying? But shit wasn't always normal for me, bro. Shit wasn't always easy, you know what I'm saying? Like, even though I grew up in like a suburban area or whatever the case may have been, things weren't, that doesn't necessarily mean shit. You understand what I'm saying? Like, and I say that because it's like, just today, I've been thinking about how you can attract things into your life, bro, that you wouldn't even expect for yourself. You know what I mean? Like, I never thought I would get stabbed. You know what I mean? I never thought I would attract that kind of a lifestyle. You understand what I'm saying? But because I opened myself up to that kind of energy, then that's what happened. You understand what I'm saying? I allowed myself to get caught up in that bullshit, basically, just because, you know what I mean? I was doing things I had no business doing necessarily, you know what I mean? Like, I was out here, just to be completely honest with myself and with everybody who's watching this, with hitting licks, quote unquote, just robbing people, doing things, beating people up, just doing things I didn't have any business doing. You understand what I'm saying? So when you're outside and you're doing stuff like that and you're treating people disrespectfully, do not be surprised when you attract that kind of energy into your life. You understand what I'm saying? Because what you put out is what you are ultimately going to get back at the end of the day. It does not fucking matter. That is just the law of attraction. You understand what I'm saying? So when I say that shit, bro, it's just really important that people understand that, like, at all times, like, anything you put out is what you're going to get back. You know what I mean? Like I said, I never expected myself to be stabbed. You understand what I'm saying? Like, I never pictured that in my life. But again, you know what I mean? There were times where, even though I grew up in the kind of neighborhood I grew up and shit like that, like, bro, like, I was just thinking, like, I remember my first time when I got jumped. You know what I mean? Like, yes, I've been jumped. I've jumped people. I've beat people. Like I said, I've beat people. I've been jumped. I've jumped people. You know what I mean? I've robbed people. I've done things that I had no business doing. And I just remember, bro, like, that how lonely and how confusing those times were. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, I've been dropped. You know what I mean? I had to get down for mine. You know what I mean? Like, I had to get down, and I didn't, the first time I ever got punched in the face, that shit was a wake-up call. You know what I mean? Sometimes that's what shit takes, bro. That's something, like, you'd be surprised. Like, the universe God has a funny way of communicating with us. You understand what I'm saying? And that first time I got punched in the face, I promised myself and guaranteed, like, that shit ain't never gonna happen again. You understand what I'm saying? And that was a promise I definitely stuck by. You know what I'm saying? I had to fight for mine. After that point, I really had to fight for my respect from where I was from, because a lot of people, they did, they didn't think that, I could stand on my own shit. You know what I'm saying? Like, I got pressed a lot. You know what I mean? I remember times where, You know what I mean? People came up to my door, literally, you know what I mean, at my mother's house, bro, like, and just try to press me about money and stupid shit like that. You understand what I'm saying? And yeah, at the time, I'm a kid, you know what I'm saying? Like, I'm 16, 17 years old, bro. You understand what I'm saying? I'm a kid. And these are like grown-ass men. These men are in their 20s at least, you know what I'm saying? And so just remembering shit like that, bro, like the kind of fear, you know, that shit really put me in like a stagnant energy because I became depressed. I became fearful. Like, it got to the point that I was afraid to go outside, bro. Like, literally, I was afraid to walk down the street to go outside because, like I said, one day, I mean, normal day, I'm just going to the store. Like, I lived by a 7-Eleven, you know, I lived by a store. One day, I'm just walking to the store, bro, average day, you know what I mean? But not being aware of the things that I was doing in the past, like I said, hanging out with the wrong people, just getting caught up in the wrong shit. You know what I mean? I used to sell, you know, drugs, quote unquote, used to. But yeah, man, I used to, you know, do stuff like that, and it got to a point to where the people I was selling for, you know what I mean, they, you know, they claimed and shit like that, you know, gang shit, part of the cartel, whatever the case is. And I just remember, bro, like, you know what I mean, I would be at work, like random shit, you know, shit, which that's how I knew I was getting in too deep, you know, too far. Because, like, I'd be at work, bro, and just these random ass, you know, like, I mean, bangers, bro, like gang bangers, you know what I mean? Like, real gangsters. Like, they would, you know, walk up to my job, and I'd just be at work, bro, and they'd be, like, saying my name and asking for me at work. I'm just like, what the fuck? Like, you know what I mean? I don't even know who these people are, but I'm talking about real ones, bro, like bald heads, tatted faces and shit like that. And again, it's not that I was like afraid of that shit, because I wasn't. I was just really, it wasn't like, sure, yeah, I'm sure it put some kind of fear in me, but again, it wasn't like the intimidation and shit like that. It wasn't something I couldn't deal with. You understand what I'm saying? Like, I always just kind of knew how to deal with that kind of intimidation, just because, you know what I mean? Just because, like I grew up, you know, my family, you know, like, they come from gangs. Like, I'm not a gangbanger or nothing, once again. But, you know, I do have family members that have been involved in gangs and shit like that. And that's how I always knew that that wasn't a life that I wanted to choose for myself. I always knew that shit. I knew that I wasn't a gangster from a long time ago, bro. Like, that was something I learned early on about myself. Like, I'm not no fucking gangster. That's why I picked up a skateboard. You understand? Because a lot of motherfuckers, like I said, it's important to know who you are, just to be yourself. Because a lot of motherfuckers think they want to be a gangster and they want to live that kind of life and shit like that. Until you attract some shit like that's, you know what I mean? Some real gangster shit that you got to protect your life. You understand what I'm saying? You got to protect your life out here and shit like that. And it's not cool, bro. It's not something that I would recommend. Look how beautiful that is. That's Oshun. But anyways, that's not something that I would recommend for anybody out here, bro. Like, please, just be yourself. Remember who you are. Remember where you come from. Like, what did you like to do as a kid? You know what I mean? Don't get caught up in bullshit and then thinking that it's all about money. Because a lot of motherfuckers want money and they do crazy things to get money. And like I said, this is going to go back to what I was just saying, bro. Like, you know, normal day, I'm walking to the store and shit like that, just minding my fucking business, bro. You understand? And the people I was, you know, selling for, they eventually started to say, you know what I mean? They started to say that I wasn't meeting my quota. I wasn't bringing back the proper money and shit like that. And so they tried to say that I owe them and all this other crazy shit. So it just got to the point where I was like, man, fuck this shit. I'm out, you know what I mean? I don't want to fuck with y'all niggas. No, I don't want to fuck with this shit no more. Like, I'm not selling nothing no more for you guys. Like, I quit. You know what I mean? And they didn't take very kindly to that. That wasn't something, you know, you can just do. Like, where I'm from, bro, like, shit is not a game where I'm from, you know what I mean? And again, bro, like, no disrespect to anybody who is a gangster, who is from a gang or anything like that, you know, because truly, I truly feel like, you know, I don't even think gangsters want to be gangsters, bro. Like, I think that's some shit that you're, like, born into. You don't choose to be a gangster, you understand? I think that shit kind of chooses you, you know what I mean? because it's not something that you can just get out of. You can't just join a gang and then be like, I don't want to be in the gang no more. Like, because you know what comes with that shit is either death, blood, or something. You know what I mean? Somebody's gonna get fucked up behind that shit because you don't want to be in the gang anymore. Like I said, bro, I learned these things early on in my life, so this is how I knew that I was not no gangster, bro. I never even tried to betray that shit or anything. Even though, yeah, I had friends that were gangsters, real ones, you know what I mean? Real bangers and shit like that. They get down. I said, bro, I went to a crazy school, you know what I mean? Where there were a lot of gangsters and shit like that. So yeah, I had friends that were gangsters, but I wasn't necessarily a gangster. And I used to kind of get pressed for hanging out with certain people just because they were gangsters, you know what I mean? Just because they did what they did. They're trying to find me for some shit that I had nothing to do with, but that wasn't the point. It was just because I knew this person and they could get to this person. So they're looking for me. I'm like, man, what the fuck, bro? Like, this shit crazy, you know what I'm saying? So please, bro, just understand, like, this shit is not a game out here. And yeah, man, like, you know, I didn't want to sell for them anymore. So one day I'm just walking to the store and, you know, they pull up on me about 3-4 deep. And yeah, you know what I mean? One dude got out the car. He just walked up to me. I don't really want to get too much into the story like that. But, you know, I reach out to shake the dude's hand because I used to chill with him like every day. You know what I mean? I used to post up with him. We used to get money together, all that shit. So I was not expecting what had happened or transpired next after that. You understand? So I just reach out, you know, to dap him up. Next thing I know, I take a punch to the face. Boom. That was it. I dropped, you know. It's not even that I dropped. I just like stumbled. I fell over a bush, and you know what I mean. I picked up my skateboard and I started swinging at motherfuckers. You know, I started going crazy, bro. Basically, and that was the first time that I really had to get down for my shit. Like, and that was really the first and the last time that I ever allowed anybody to, you know, get off on me like that for real, bro. Because that didn't make no sense. It's not that it didn't make sense. It made perfect sense. But it was just like, it was an eye-opener. You understand what I'm saying? And sometimes, like I said, God has a very unique way of waking us up, bro. You know what I'm saying? Sometimes it does take a punch in the face. And yeah, it's just crazy, bro. Because from that point on in my life, I always felt like I had to protect myself, you know what I'm saying? Like, bro, there were times where I couldn't even walk to school. Like, literally, I had to carry a blade. I had to stash weapons around my neighborhood, you know, around where I lived in those areas, because I was just afraid if, you know, I'm walking to school one day, or I'm skating down to school, or I'm skating to the skate park, or wherever I'm going, you know what I mean? I want to make sure that I have something ready just in case somebody tries to pull up on me, you know what I'm saying? Like, and it was crazy because no matter which way I had to go, there was always somebody there who wanted to smoke with me. It was just understanding that this trauma, you understand? Like, I'm living with trauma inside of my mind without even being aware of it. Like, I wasn't aware of all this trauma that was happening, but like I said, I'm walking to school. If I go that way, then I gotta face them. If I go this way, then there's somebody else over here who doesn't really fuck with me like that. You know what I'm saying? People used to try to run me over with their cars. They would try to catch me slipping, as they say, and shit like that. Just crazy shit, you know what I mean? And like I said, bro, it wasn't even like that was something I was trying to attract in my life. Like, it wasn't something like, they eventually started trying to get at my friends. You know what I mean? Like, I just remember like one time, it's a crazy story because I had got robbed once, right? So somebody had robbed me, and he pulled out like this, like a machete, bro, like a huge knife. You know what I mean? And he had robbed me. So that was actually, I think, like the first time I ever got robbed, to be honest. I think I was like 15 or something like that. But anyways, bro, he had robbed me, and yeah, like, it's crazy because I went back and I told the plug or whatever, and you know, the dude that robbed me, he didn't know that I was fucking with them, you know what I'm saying? And so when they found out, like, that was the first thing. I went right to the plug and I was like, bro, I just got robbed, you know what I mean? Of course, I didn't say it all calm like that. At the time, I was a little crazy. But yeah, man, you know, I went back and I let them know, and they, bro, it was probably like, this shit was crazy, bro. You know what I mean? Because at that time, as a kid, I'm like not nervous, but my adrenaline is rushing, and I'm like, you know what I mean? But like to see like he's not my big homie, nothing like that, but just to see him like handle the situation so calmly, like he would, they're because I just feel like they've been through real shit, and once you start to actually go through real things where people are actually, real things, bro, like real shit goes down, it's like you gotta stay calm. You have to stay calm, and you have to use your mind. You have to think, because if you don't, then you're like in fear. You know what I'm saying? Like a lion and a gazelle, bro. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like a gazelle is like running, like like, you know what I mean? The lion's like, I'm about to eat your ass. You feel me? Like food, nigga, food. But anyways, you know what I mean? So they were just calm, and all they had to do was make a phone call, maybe 2 phone calls, like, yo, so and so, just one of my people just got robbed, blah blah blah. Next thing I know, the dude that robbed me pulled up, and this man was like, bro, he was like apologizing to me. He gave me all my things back. He gave me everything back, and he was like, I didn't know, I'm sorry. You know what I mean? And he like shook my hand. Of course, I was like, what's up? You know what I mean? At the time, bro, I was ignorant. You know what I'm saying? An ignorant fool, bro. Just ignorant. But moral of the story is, bro, like, that shit is crazy to think about, because after he left, he wasn't happy about that. And it's not that he wasn't happy about that. The thing was that I had homies, bro. I had, like I said, my friends were gangsters, you understand? Even though I wasn't, they still knew that I wasn't that kind of a person. You know what I mean? They knew that I was just like a kid who liked to skate and do what I do, make money. You understand what I'm saying? So when they found out about that, you know what I mean? They basically went to this dude's house, bro. Like, they went to his house, and I guess they had been drinking that night or something. And I'm about to walk up out of here. Fuck this shit. Yeah, man. So basically, they just went. You know, they had went to this dude's house who had robbed me, because they had found out about that shit. So they went over to his house, and like I said, I guess they had been drinking. They had like boxes. You know, when you get like a 30 pack of beer or something like that. And they had hella bottles, apparently. I don't know. They just had a bunch of bottles, and they started, throwing empty glass bottles at this man's house. You know what I mean? And they was like, yo, come outside. You like to rob people? You rob my homie. Just going crazy, right? Like, and I didn't even know about this, bro. They did this on their own. Like, I don't even know how they found out, because I didn't tell them. So I guess just the word got around, bro. And when they found out, like I said, they went over there and they started throwing bottles at his house. And, when they started throwing bottles, like I said, bro, the kid, he was scared, bro. I mean, he was at his house by himself with his mom, you know what I mean? His mom was like scared. She had to call the police and all this shit. They like yelling, throwing bottles, like, come outside, what's up, let's get down, blah, blah, blah. So apparently he never came outside, obviously. Probably the best choice. But yeah, man, so the next day, like, I find this out. And for some reason, bro, this is what I mean, like, just the craziest shit. Like, my friend, he lived down the street. He lived next to the 7-Eleven or whatever. And one day, I'm just in my room, doing what I do, chilling. And he just comes in, or he doesn't come in. He runs up to my door, just knocking, like, hey, Mike. I'm like, what's up, bro? What's going on? Like, he's like, he's out of breath. He's like, yo, so-and-so has just started chasing me. He had this big pipe. I guess he had like a bat or something like that. And he started chasing him down the street, and he was ready to beat him down. You know what I'm saying? It was just crazy, bro. So I was like, damn, what the fuck? Like, what's going on? You know what I mean? I'm like, what the hell? Like, why? What's going on? And then later I had found out that's why. Because, he was trying to find me because of some shit that the homies did that I had nothing to do with. You know what I mean? he had nothing to do with the kid that was running to my house. Definitely didn't have anything to do with it, but he was just like confused just as much as I was. But again, bro, this goes back. I'm just like, yo, like, shit crazy, man. Like, I just thinking, bro, I'm a kid. You know what I mean? I'm but 16 years old, bro, 15, 16 years old. And I'm thinking, all right, well, let me get what I need. Let me get the strap, get the strap like 50. Let me get what I need to get, you know what I mean? So I get my stuff. Like I said, we start walking down the street. Next thing I know, I'm like stashing things all over the place just in case we see him. You know what I mean? So we just go on about our business. And yeah, bro, it was just things like that are just like, yo, like that's not a life that anybody should want to live, bro. I don't care how old you are. You know what I mean? That shit ain't cool, bro. It's not cool. Like, that shit really ain't cool. You understand what I'm saying? Like I felt bad for my friend, for one, because he had nothing to do with it. He's not even in that kind of a life. He was a skater. You understand what I'm saying? Like, we were just skateboarders, bro. And even that then, you know, kind of caused him to kind of, you know, go. Like, even that happening to him, it kind of caused him to feel like, you know, he had to start carrying something with him. And it's just like, bro, it's just crazy how energy works like that. You know what I mean? Because it's really fucked up, because that's trauma. You understand what I'm saying? You start trauma bonding, and then you start hanging out with people. You start thinking a certain way, and it just becomes depressing, bro. It's a dark ass energy. You know what I mean? Dark energy, bro. And it's just not cool. You know, that's only one. Those are just like barely few examples of things that, you know what I mean, I've gone through in my life. And just to see where I'm at now, like, bro, I'm in the woods, bro. I'm just so grateful, and I'm fucking thankful, so grateful and so thankful to live the life that I live today, you know? Because life wasn't always like this, bro. Life wasn't always as easy as things are today. You know what I mean? There was a point where I couldn't even live, bro. Like, can I live? Like, no. Like, no. So it's just crazy, man. You gotta be careful with the energy that you attract into your life, because sometimes, bro, you're gonna get what you're asking for. At the end of the day, you are going to get what you're asking for. You know what I mean? And like I said, I wasn't even a gangbanger. I didn't do nothing like that. So it's just crazy, bro. Really just crazy. You know what I mean? I don't recommend that for nobody, bro. That's not a life anybody should want for themselves, bro. Take care of yourself, you know? Like, start a family, bro. Go to work. Like, get a job. Just live a normal fucking life, you know what I'm saying? You don't even have to necessarily do that shit, bro. Just do what you love to do, you know what I mean? Because, bro, life, like I said, bro, life is literally what you make life to be, bro. So it's just crazy, you know what I mean? Like, a lot of crazy shit has been going on out here. And I just know from experience, you know what I mean? A lot of my experiences in my life have taught me a lot about myself, bro. Taught me to understand how to live, you know what I mean? That's why I literally live such a pure life now, because literally, bro, like, everything I do, like, anything I ingest, I put into my body, anything that I speak, you know what I mean? Anything that I do, like the action that I take, everything, bro. Like, all that shit matters, all that shit counts. You understand what I'm saying? And it's just kind of crazy, bro. It's kind of crazy, like, you know what I mean? Like I said, bro, sometimes I don't even think gangsters want to be gangsters, bro. Like, they don't. Like, why? Like I said, I have real family members that are gangsters and shit like that. And seeing that, bro, seeing real gangsters taught me a whole lot about myself that I'm not a gangster, bro. Like, you know what I mean? Like, that shit is so annoying, bro. I'm sorry. It's crazy as fuck. My bad, bro. I had to get away from that shit. That shit was so annoying. Not that this is much better because of freeway and shit. Yeah, bro. Like I said, man, I don't even think gangsters want to be gangsters sometimes, you know what I mean? But once you make that choice, bro, it's like blood in, blood out, you know what I mean? You can't get in and then expect that you're just gonna get out of that shit without anything coming back to you. You understand what I'm saying? So it's just very, very important, bro, that you know who you are and remember who you are if you forgot. Go back to what you love to do. Go back to that childlike heart. Be a kid again, you know what I'm saying? Act like a kid again, bro. Because like I said, man, we can get caught up in this adulting bullshit and, you know, forget to love ourselves. It's just kind of crazy, you know? So, bro, I grew up. I didn't necessarily grow up in the hood or nothing like that, but I mean, somewhat, bro, somewhat, you know what I mean? Like, my grandma, my dad, but where I lived with my mom, so they did everything they can to make sure that, you know, we didn't live that kind of life, to make sure that I didn't get stabbed, you know what I mean? But, like, bro, you can take the kid out the hood, but you can't take the hood out the kid, you know what I'm saying? And, yeah, bro. I really don't wish that on nobody, you know. I really wish everybody the best out here, man. Even if you are a gangster, like I said, bro, I wish you the best. You know what I mean? Live your life to the fullest, bro. Love yourself. Love your life, bro, to the fullest, you know. So, bro, I had uncles and cousins. You know what I mean? Like, my cousin is the realest gangbanger I ever knew, you know what I'm saying? And that's a fact, bro, so. I mean, he was the realest gangbanger I ever knew. I've heard, you know what I mean, when you hear stories about about your family and shit, then that's when you know the shit is real. Like, people were, you know, like, telling me, like, I'm telling you, yeah, that's my cousin. Like, oh, that's your cousin? Like, oh yeah, he's crazy. Like, he's official. Like, yeah, I know that. Trust me, I know. Nigga had like super strength. He had like super speed. Shit was crazy, bro. So, yeah, man, live your life, bro. You know what I mean? I'm telling you, it's not something that you should want for yourself. A lot of niggas think, like, that's the thing, bro. Like, a lot of motherfuckers think that they're gangster because of dumb shit, like crash dummy shit. That doesn't make you a gangster, bro. That doesn't make you cool. You know what I mean? Like, belittling people, trying to get over on people, trying to take things from people, trying to get into fights. That's not cool, bro. That's not gangster. And I don't mean gangster like on some rap shit. Like, niggas think rappers are gangster. Man, that shit is hilarious, bro. And I'm sure there are a lot of gangster. I'm sure there are rappers that are some like some real ones. You feel me? But probably 95% of what you see, niggas ain't really gangster like that, bro. I promise. And I'm not like, don't test me. Don't test my gangster. I don't care. I'm not no gangster. like I said, bro. It's just crazy, you know? It's just crazy, bro. Crazy. I mean, like, I've literally had to, like I said, carry weapons, carry things with me. I don't carry shit with me today. This ain't even a weapon, bro. I have real power. You understand what I'm saying? I have a real power. My thing is lungs over guns. lungs over guns. Lungs over guns. You feel me? Because that's where the real power is. Shout out to KRS-One. Guns, God, universe, and nature. That's the most powerful gun you could ever have. And don't underestimate that shit ever. I promise you. That is the most truest thing I've ever heard. You know what I'm saying? God, universe, and nature is the most powerful gun you could ever have and use. So, don't take things lightly out here, bro. Don't think that shit is sweet out here. You know, cause shit ain't really sweet, bro. I'm a sweetheart. But I'm aware, my awareness, that kind of a life, that kind of lifestyle, those things that I had experience in life, they just made me smart. They just made me aware, made me fully aware of what was going on and what is going on. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, man. Love yourself, alright? Peace, love, and light, bro. Peace, love, and light. I wish you the best out here. I really do. We all make mistakes. And it's about the action that you take after making that mistake. Understand what I'm saying? Like, what are you going to do about it? What are you going to do to switch that situation around, turn that situation around, you know? Because you can always do that. You can always do things to make up for situations. Alright? Make things right, bro. Simple. Make things right. Peace.